Welcome to the Be That Healing Girl podcast. And on this episode today, we're going to talk about how I didn't look at the facts and my relationship paid the price. So, this is a great episode for you if you are an overthinker. And what I mean by that is there's a certain flavor here in this community where you tend to look for problems where there are none, right? You're making up some fake scenarios where they're just doing all kinds of things when in reality they've shown you nothing but loyalty and consistency and love. And the big problem with that is that we tend to push people away when we're in our heads. We're looking for problems when there are none. And it all kind of boils down to, am I the drama? And I love you, but you're probably here because you might be part of the drama. And the thing that most people get wrong and they get twisted is they think overthinking is a sign of intelligence, and that might be true for sure in a career or in the thing that you're good at, but it is definitely not helping you with your relationships, because in relationships, overthinking is avoidance. All right, I'll just be really honest with that. So if you're the type of girly who is highly aware but still kind of stuck, then this is the place for you. All right, and I got you. And I like to say this as if you were good at being a flight simulator person, a pilot, and you have all the knobs and you're testing out with all the buttons, and you are really good at looking and navigating the simulation, but you're still stuck on the ground. And that's a lot of times what this can feel like when you're highly intelligent, highly aware, but you have anxious attachment. So no further ado, let's dive into it. And my name is Claire, by the way, if you're new here, and I'm a relationship coach. I love helping high achieving, high performing girlies with receipts to show it, meaning you are a corporate climber, right? You have a corner office or you're director of blah, 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 and you are killing it in the corporate area. Or maybe you are an academic, maybe you are a bookworm, a nerd, and you've got some letters behind your name, like a PhD, MD, NP, any of that sort or similar. Or maybe you're an entrepreneur. Maybe you have a business that's really well established and you've got a brand. And while you're doing so well in that area, you are suffering with anxiety in your relationship. It really is like this, a mask falls off and you kind of get, if you're dating, you start to go down a rabbit hole. It's kind of switches the moment you like them. Or maybe you're in a relationship and you are kind of pushing them away. So if that is you, then good news. And a little update. This is my first podcast back from my hysterectomy. Whoa, can't believe I'm saying that. And I've been posting on my stories, but I had some pretty gnarly hives. I think I'm allergic to surgical glue. I think that's actually what's going on, or whatever they put on my skin. But it's all cleared up and I'm well into like top of week 4. So almost week 5, I'm feeling really great. And I am so grateful for all your support and messages. It's been really, really sweet. And I have saw a very clear through line with how I got here in this place, and how in myself, I didn't look at some of the facts that were happening in my life, and I paid a price. And I can see this pattern in how I've navigated relationships. And I thought, well, no other place, better place to talk about it than here. So that's my little update. Also, fun thing coming up is that Craig and I are going to the Philippines. I'm going to be facing my big abandonment wound in 2 ways. I have been in no contact with my dad for ever since I was 13, but I've seen him in 2015, and this is the first time I'll actually be talking to him really. Besides the fact that he ghosted me, that's literally a whole other podcast episode. But I'll be seeing him in February for the first time, and my sister, who has chosen to go. We've been in no contact. So really interesting things. Can't wait to take you along with that. If you have questions or want to know more, happy to send me a DM. Happy to kind of, if you're in that experience or if you have wounds like that, happy to talk about it. Family is complicated. We learn how to attach from our families. It's really kind of critical. We look at those pieces and parts of us, and I can definitely say I've done a lot of work and more to go around my dad, around my mom, the whole shebang. So happy to share more. And if you want me to share more or more specifically, send me a DM. So that's kind of on the front, the forefront. Also, my skin. If you're looking on YouTube, hello, the skin is skinning. Just means that you gotta sometimes take out a uterus. I'm not saying go get a hysterectomy, because if you don't need one, don't get one. But look at the skin; it's looking pretty good. So let's talk about this whole piece where I didn't look at the facts, and I'm just gonna say maybe you are looking at what you think are facts, right? That's what tends to happen when we're making up fake scenarios, or we're looking for problems when there are none. And I look back at a relationship that I had, and I'll just be honest, he was a really, really great guy. He was great. He was so sweet, so caring, and so loving. He had all the other kind of components of, he had a great career track. His family was really sweet as well. He was a water sign. So water signs, you guys are deep feelers and can really easily connect. And in that, very much, very prone to connection. And while he had all of the feeling and all of the, I would say, just like the on paper things where everything was great, I got the ick. Straight up, I got the ick. And I wasn't looking at those very clear facts in the relationship. And I made up that he wasn't sweet enough. I don't know, that a friend of mine, I'll just bring this in, a friend of mine who, looking back, was really deep into her anxious attachment. She was like, he's so vanilla. He's so vanilla. And basically, I took that as meaning he's boring, right? And what I didn't realize was that boring means safe, right? And I also kind of had this, like, I don't know. I made up a lot of things that were just in my head. They were not actually facts. And as I was overthinking and kind of talking myself out of it, because really, who has two thumbs and is pointing at herself and saying, I maybe was scared of vulnerability. It was getting too real. Like, he was actually giving me so many things that I said that I wanted, but because I didn't know how to handle it, right? And this is the irony, is I was at the time really starting to do a lot of yoga. I was self-aware, the therapy, right? I was working on myself, little bunny ears of that. And in all of that phase in my life, I was really, I in my mind, I had built a case against him. I really had gotten the ick because I had focused on things that were really not relevant. I was listening to outside sources that they didn't have what I wanted, but somehow I decided that that was going to impact me. And I got this ick, not because there was actually an ick, but because I had literally convinced myself. I was not looking at the facts of how I really felt with him. I was not looking at what the qualities that he was bringing in the partnership. I just wasn't looking at them, right? I was going into my own head, making shit up, all right? Be honest. And I see this same pattern when I had this, how I got into this pickle with my hysterectomy, right? Where at the end of the day, the same pattern that was happening was self-sabotage, right? For my hysterectomy, I was thinking about, well, the focus was all wrong. I was thinking about, well, I can just figure it out on my own. I'm smart. I can fix my hormones and take a look at them. And instead, Craig and I, we go on walks twice a day. It's not right now. It's actually really cold. So he's out right now walking the dog. And my focus was off. I remember when we were traveling in our RV full time, one day I was just like poking at my stomach because it was literally, my fibroid was, my OBGYN said I was basically 5 months pregnant. I've been 5 months pregnant for years. And I remember poking it and like making him poke this lump, literal huge hard lump in my stomach, and saying, I think something's weird. I don't know. And Craig was like, yeah, that's weird. And I just was looking at the wrong things. I was, okay, maybe I can just like lose more weight, or I don't know, I'm having hormone issues. And in reality, it was just this self-sabotage, right? I was not looking at the right things. And basically, I see the same pattern. I was overthinking this what was happening in my body. And that's not that different than when I was overthinking with this good person. And so what I know that from this experience, from the patterns that we are in, when we don't understand how to identify our self-sabotage, we end up basically cock blocking ourselves. We end up getting in our own way. And when we are unaware that we're self-sabotaging, and here's the thing too that I think is really interesting. I had really convinced myself in all these areas. There's a lot of convincing that can go on where I was convinced that there was something wrong with my hormones. Like if I can just eat something different in my diet, or if I can take this supplement, or I really nail down my routine. And now I will tell you that my routine is so dialed in now, and now I can really actually feel the benefit of it because the big problem with my hormones is eliminated. But I see this through line that when we feel really righteous and we are not willing to kind of go deeper and face the deeper issue, that is self-sabotage. And when we are in that mode, that is exactly the thing that ends up pushing great things away, great relationships away, great opportunities away, because we have it in our own head that that it has to look a certain way, or that it is a certain way. And that is a huge problem, right? And the reality is, when we are in self-sabotage, it's kind of ironic because I know here we talk about anxious attachment, but if you're a client of mine that you know that, and I'll just share right now, my perspective around attachment styles is so much deeper. It's not really doesn't matter. It's also kind of funny too. I was just talking to a client, a one-on-one client, and she was admitting and realizing now that she's getting deeper in relationship that she is noticing that she's being more avoidant. And she's like, is that weird? I'm like, not at all. This is kind of the core of attachment styles, that at the end of the day, that there's so much going on that's deeper than just an outward symptom of I need to pick up my phone to call them and see if they've checked in, or are they going to text me back? It's so much deeper than that. So when we are self-sabotaging, self-sabotage is just a method of avoidance. We are just avoiding looking at something deeper. We convince ourselves that we can figure it out. We convince ourselves that I can just do some more research over here. We try to gather more insight when in reality, that doesn't actually change anything. We actually need to take action. So for example, for me, I didn't need to learn more about hormones. I needed to go to the frickin' doctor. Straight up, I needed to get support. I needed to get help. And I see that even with the pattern that I see in my clients. Like a lot of times, the reason that we stay stuck is because it's self-sabotage. We would rather just spin out. We'd rather just listen to some podcasts. I love that you're listening right now, instead of actually looking deeper and getting the support that we need. So self-sabotage, it sucks. And we have to ask ourselves, what am I avoiding? What am I actually avoiding? And where do I need more help? So speaking of that, I love to pull up some points and questions that come up in the Healing Girl Gang, which is my community, where we literally go through step by step the process of how to stop self-sabotaging, how to heal our dynamics with anxious attachment. And one of the things that came up in a bonus session that I did recently was somebody asked, well, how do I say the right thing, right? Basically, how do I do a check-in, or how do I bring up a hard conversation in the relationship? And it was so funny because she's been a very avid fan of the podcast and content, and now she's in the Healing Girl Gang. And it was so funny because part of one of the magic that I like in the process that I work clients through is just practicing like really radical honesty. And when we were chatting it through, one of the things that came up was she really wanted to get the thing right. She wanted to make sure She came to the conversation prepared. She came to it with all her talking points that, okay, if I can just nail down the exact right thing to say, then the conversation's going to go well. And when I pointed that out to her, like all of us in the call had a little giggle because yeah, that's typically the thing. And what I was considering around that I wanted to bring to you here is when we are in this process or this strategy, I'll call it, to say the right thing. I mean, that's perfectionism, but another piece that's so specific to anxious attachment is we try to manage the conversation. Right? We try to manage a conversation or we try to manage the outcome, right? We try to manage, yes, there's management in what we want to say, but we do that because we're trying to manage their response or manage what's going to be the result of the conversation. And there's no better buzzkill for intimacy and connection than trying to be the manager of it, right? And a lot of times can be this feeling of like, I got to solve the problem. I want to fix the problem. It can almost feel, I just feel this in my body, myself. It feels like a scramble. Like I'll do anything to make sure that you don't go away and that I don't make more distance for us. And when we are in this problem solving, like there's a problem that we have and I got to make it better, that's actually the place that we lose out on connecting. We smother that intimacy, we smother the love because we're so busy trying to solve the problem. Like there's something going on in a relationship and I got to bring it up to you and I want to say the right thing and I can't mess it up and I'm going to try my best to like get it right and try to manage the hell out of this conversation and manage our not seeing eye to eye because man, not being connected or being disconnected from you feels so effing scary, right? And we try to manage the dynamic. We try to manage the outcome and manage how much we push them away or don't push them away. And that is the problem, my friends, right? The problem is if we focus all our energy in trying to manage our partner or manage the conversation or manage what's going to happen, we smother the thing that we actually want. We actually make it move further away. And that's why this spring is really, we kind of go through this sequence. Like January in the Healing Girl Gang, we talk a lot about how to become your own main character, how to decenter the relationship. And then we go into February is all about the dynamic. How do you, instead of trying to manage the dynamic, how can you relax into it? How can you actually authentically be yourself? And then we go into communication. How do you, okay, so once we cannot focus all our attention on the relationship and we can relax and see that, okay, we are different, but that doesn't mean that we're not meant to be together or that we can't work through whatever challenge is here. That's actually when we start to communicate better. So really excited. I loved that point that she brought up. And I felt like this is such a great place to talk about it here on the podcast, because I know that it is so scary to potentially push somebody away or handle a conversation and it doesn't go well. And when we stop managing and are more authentic, that's really the key. So learning how to stop managing and to relax, really, really key. So super excited to be back. Cannot wait to get back in the swing on the podcast. Also, I'm open to requests like a DJ. So if you have certain topics that you like, just send me a DM and tell me that like this is a podcast episode that you like to hear. And I'm really thrilled to be back. I'm feeling great. Sending you all lots of love. Mwah.